right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is show you guys, now that we've played around with making 3D objects, I'm going to show you guys how we can do some basic editing. I think I'm going to do just a short video on subtract, union, and intersect, because those are pretty major ones that you use. That way it'll be a short little video here. I'm going to zoom in and take this guy right here. I'm going to move this, regular old move command, pick it up at that top point, and I'm going to, let's just put it at mid between 2 points, so it's right smack in the middle here. Now that cylinder command, it might not look like you use that command too often, but you actually will. You're going to use this cylinder all the time when you want to get a hole through something. What we're going to do is subtract. And then one thing to notice, I'm going to press F2 so you can see my whole screen. It says right here, select objects to subtract from. So this is, for me at least, it's counterintuitive because I want to say subtract this from that, but you're saying subtract from, and then what do you want to subtract? I had a student who was a math major, and he was like, mathematically speaking, that's correct. You take your big number and you subtract from that. So mathematically speaking, my mind doesn't think that way. So if I want to keep the box, I say subtract from, select the box. You can select multiple things if you need to. Press enter. Now, what do you want to subtract? I'm going to subtract the cylinder. Press enter. What I'm doing right now is I'm going to hit the shift key and I'm going to hold down my wheelie ball. And this is called orbit. So you can see I subtracted that cylinder from that box and now I have a hole going all the way through it. So this is the orbit command. If I come over here, I've also got another orbit. So there's a free orbit, which you could do, and this one I'm not using the wheelie bar. I go into free orbit and I'm pressing it, my left button, holding it down, and going back and forth. This one's kind of fun, watch this. Continuous orbit. You give it a little push and let go and it's orbiting on its own. Depending on which way you want to push it, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Watch this. Push hard. Woo!
What's going on?
It's hard to see. All right, so I'm going to do a little thing here. So that's the subtract command. That's the main one that you're going to use. I'm going to show you the other ones, though. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to turn off that grid for now. So here's the subtract command. I'm going to do it. Select this box. Or I'm sorry, let's do the union command. So that's the first one here. Union command takes two different objects or multiple objects. It doesn't have to be two, it could be 500. That would be really intense to have 500. But anyway, I'm going to take my two objects. I'm going to say union. I selected both of them. When I press enter, it's one piece now. So it takes those objects and it makes it into one piece. If you have a line where two rectangles maybe came together and there's a line kind of right at the intersection point, if you do the union command, you lose that line because it becomes one piece. So you don't see the edges. So that's the union command. Notice though, remember I talked about grip editing and I said you lose your grips. So once I unioned something, I lost those grips, whereas I haven't unioned this, and so I've still got those grips. I can adjust the size of my box. This next one, subtract, we've already seen that, so I'll click here, enter, and I've got my box here. Giving myself back to the isometric view. So I've just subtracted, just took a bite out of that box. This next one is the intersect command. I'm going to select this and I'm going to select that, and when I press enter, it only keeps where they intersected each other. Now, my example for this, what I used to do when I would draw decks, I would sometimes we would have a deck that would be just like a crazy shape. Maybe it's an existing deck that's going around trees or a pool or something like that, and it would be this crazy shape. And it would be really hard to draw deck boards in that shape. So what I would do is I would draw a footprint like this, and I would draw 3D deck boards, array them out, whatever size, however many I need. And then I would use, I would take that crazy shape and I would extrude it, which we haven't talked about extrude yet. You use that in your 1405 class though, so you're probably familiar. Extrude that crazy shape so that it's a 3D solid, and then use that intersect command, and I will end up with deck boards in that weird shape, 3D deck boards. So that's my example for when you might use the intersect command.
But like a cookie cutter of,
yeah, as long as you've got, two that are intersecting, it just keeps kind of, like the cookie cutter. So watch, I'm going to move this little bite into here. And you know how I talked about you lose that kind of seam? I'm going to union this back to this, and I've got a solid box again. So that's another example of when you might be able to do that. Sometimes when I'm doing 3D, I don't tend to do it as much anymore, but I used to do it all the time. I would keep like a little, I called it my graveyard. So everything that I was going to subtract from something else, or everything that I would make a copy of it off in my graveyard. That way, if I ever had to go plug it back in, I could do that with the union command. So I haven't done the graveyard in a while, but that would be a good example of maybe when you could do that. So that is union, subtract, and intersect, and you're going to use subtract all the time, union at the end.